Well, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get started now. It's great to see all of you here this reunion weekend, and we've had a chance to renew our friendships and acquaintances. We're here today in loving memory of our 21 classmates that are no longer with us physically. Hopefully, they're here with us in spirit today. As we commemorate our departed friends' lives, we like to celebrate their lives. It really did warm my heart to visit with all the family members and friends of those who passed away and find out about their adult lives and about their families, kids and grandkids and you know, what they did, where they worked, and their accomplishments, hobbies, and then we have quite a number of funny stories about them. And I'd like to thank my classmates who helped me to get in touch with some of these family members. One in particular, Gerard Gonzalez, really found a lot of names and numbers for me, which was very helpful. I wanted to just very quickly, we have two former elected officials here. One of them is the Honorable Lieutenant Governor Roberto Mondragon. And here, most of you know, the Honorable Ray Ortiz. He was our district judge for many years. So today, Josina and I are going to present the tributes. We split them up, and as we were planning this event, we had decided to invite people to get up and say something about some of our friends who have passed away if they want. We got to try to keep it brief because we have 21 we have to go through. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with a short opening prayer by Perla Aranda, and then Josina and I will pay tribute to each of our departed classmates, and we're going to do it in the chronological order of their passing. There are a few that we just were not able to find the date of their passing. Thank you, Ray, for passing out the printed photos of our friends. And then the last thing at the end of this, Bill Roybal is going to come in and do a closing for us.
Thank you all for being here. Our Lord, you are with us today as we remember the lives of our dearly departed classmates. We honor their life, knowing that nothing in this world can separate any of them from your love. We celebrate their memories and ask that you give strength to the family and friends they left behind. Loving Father, we thank you for your unconditional love and the blessings you have given us. We ask that you watch over us and guide us in the right direction. For our classmates, families, and friends that are sick, we ask for your healing touch and their freedom from sickness and pain. And when the time comes for us to depart this life, take us into your loving arms and welcome us home to eternal life. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Carla.
But knock everything down. Okay. So we had a committee. Sherry. She gets mad because I keep telling her I'm on the committee. Anyway, this would not have happened without Perla. Perla. And it just wouldn't have, she started it wouldn't have happened without Perla. So even though Bernadette stole my thunder, here's another story.
As usual, I had a wonderful, wonderful committee that helped, and without them, it would have never happened. So thank you. All of those committee members, please stand up and be recognized.
And last night, nobody thanked Robert Dignayo for being MC and all of the things that he did for us last night. Thank you, Diggy. Okay, we're going to get started, and first going to speak about James Arthur Tiny Salazar. He passed away on April 16, 1974. Tiny, as we knew him, was taken from us at a very young age. First of our classmates to pass away not too many years after graduation, and he passed away a month before his 21st birthday. By May of 1971, cancer had already really weakened him, so his graduation ceremony was held in the living room at his home. His father, Jimmy Salazar, just died like about 3 months ago at the age of 93. And I spoke with his mom. She's 91, and she still has a real sharp memory and a great sense of humor. She told me Tiny was such a good, kind, lovable kid. She said there were 3 family members named James, so he was nicknamed Tiny, his dad was Jimmy, and his uncle was named Mooch. He had 2 sisters, Liz and Michelle, 6 and 12 years younger than him. Michelle, the youngest, told me Tiny would always tease her, but he loved her, and she thought all of Tiny's best buddies, who were Louis Montoya, Louis Deaton, John Fox, and Ray Ortiz, were so friendly and cute, especially that tall one, Ray Ortiz. At his young age, Tiny was quite an entrepreneur. He helped in his dad's master cleaners business, and he later ran a laundromat that he and his dad had purchased. And with his earnings, he bought his baby sister her first bicycle. He became a member of the Elks Lodge at age 20, just before he passed away, even though the minimum age requirement was 21. I recall he was one of our friendliest classmates and always had a smile on his face and a friendly greeting for everyone that he came in contact with. Tiny participated at St. Mike's in student council, football, block cam, and honor roll. And Ray Ortiz shared some nice memories about Tiny. James Salazar, or Tiny, as he was known to most of us, was a very affable, easygoing guy with a generous smile and a big heart. I share 2 memories that show a deeper side of Tiny. Underneath those qualities that most of us saw was a competitiveness that was not readily apparent. We'll get into that in just a sec, but just in case any of you are wondering, Tiny got his nickname from his family since he was around 200 pounds by the time he was in 6th grade, and the name stuck through his time at St. Mike's. First, the story about being competitive. I got to know Tiny much better at the end of 6th grade. I was shooting hoops in the playground at E.J. Martinez Elementary School, since some of the rims there were lower and available for a little dunking. He happened to be trying his hand there too, so we talked a little and he invited me over to his house, which was only a couple of blocks away. He had a hoop in his backyard, so we played 21. That game came easy for me since I was on the basketball team at St. Francis. More than that, his dad Jimmy had set up a soft or shooter's rim, so most shots fell through easily. We soon got to 21-7. His 7 points came mostly from his just backing me into the lane for a short hook shot. I just couldn't move him out of there. 21-7 didn't seem to faze him on the outside, but then we started a little game of football in his front yard. He had a very modest house with front grass about 10 yards long by 5 yards wide, just enough for a tight football field. This was not flag or touch football, but full-on tackle. This was also not a nice little game of 21, mind you. Touchdowns scored 1 point, not 6. We lined up in the trenches, so to speak, and went head on. As soon as either of us picked the ball off the ground, when we had the ball, he just bowled me over mostly. Couldn't stop him, since I had never played football, and I was about 130 pounds soaking wet. I eventually stopped trying to go through him and tried to go around him, but there was little field to work with. The sideline was only 2.5 yards from the point of the ball when the ball was snapped. Final score, Tiny takes it 21-5. And then he said, let's play 2. So we did again. The score is about the same.
although I was too tired to remember the exact count. His very nice mom, Ernetta, came out with some sandwiches and Kool-Aid. We talked for a long time, and I eventually left on my bike, humbled and exhausted. There is a story about his compassion and insight. Fast forward to senior year. As all of you know, Tiny was stricken with cancer by mid-second semester of that year. By the time of graduation, he was just starting chemo and was completely laid up. So much so that Brother Ralph had to award him his diploma at Tiny's house while Tiny was laying down in his favorite chair, still with his easygoing smile on his face. Fast forward 4 months to October 1st. I just completed my first month at Notre Dame when I got word that my beloved grandfather Ramon, from whom I am named and has raised me as a young child, had died suddenly. I flew straight home, the last leg of the flight from Denver to Santa Fe in the snow. It was already dark at the airport. I was distraught, tired, just trying to hold it together and to get to Bardnelly Funeral Home in time for the rosary, since the funeral and burial were the next day, my 18th birthday. There was Tiny waiting for me at the airport. The chemo had for the moment brought him back to his feet so that he could drive around a little. We had talked some during that first month of college, so we well knew each other's circumstances, but there he was on the drive into town, quietly talking, consoling me, telling me to be strong for my family and for my grandfather. There he was consoling me at a time he was facing a life-threatening struggle with cancer, having the compassion to move past his own deep fears and console a friend in deep crisis. The cancer couldn't defeat Tiny's compassion and insight in that moment, but he eventually went to the Lord about 16 months later. Maybe he's looking down on us now with that generous, compassionate smile. Thanks, Ray, for sharing those great
So I have to mention this for my St. Francis, kids that went to St. Francis. Of the 21 that died, 9 were from classmates from St. Francis. Tiny went to St. Francis. The next 2 I'm going to read went to St. Francis. It was just kind of jarring to realize, I mean, that this many classmates had died, but that many went to school with us since first grade, really. So the next one is Dan Sanchez. Excuse me. Dan was well liked by our classmates. He is from a family with deep roots in Santa Fe. His father was Manuel Sanchez, and he had 2 other sisters, Donald and Rosemary. He was a first cousin of Ted Gonzalez, which I never knew that. At St. Mike's, Dan was an excellent student. He was recognized for honor roll, student council, football, block M, choir, and was in the class play. We could not get in touch with any of his family. However, Mark did get some thoughts about Dan from one of our classmates, David Martinez, who remained close to him after high school. He remembered that Dan would always go to school with his clothes perfectly cleaned and pressed, and he carried a briefcase fully stocked with pencils, pens, paper, and other office supplies he needed for class. He did that in elementary school too. And David called him the great communicator. He always stayed in touch. If you didn't call him after a few days, he would call you. Dan had an infectious smile, was always jovial, and had a positive attitude. He stayed in touch and really enjoyed getting together with his friends. He also had a heart of gold. He was always available whenever his family or friends needed help. He was very family-oriented. He loved his family. He was always very generous and would give you the shirt off his back. Dan loved the outdoors. He enjoyed hiking, camping, and fishing with his friends, although he wasn't very good at fishing, but he kept trying. Frank Lopez had a small motorboat, and one evening Dan, Frank, and David Martinez went out to Santa Cruz Lake night fishing. Again, that night, Dan wasn't having much luck. All of a sudden, he would say, "I got a strike." And then they'd tell him, "Hook it and pull it in." Then nothing was on the line, and he'd say things like, "Oh, he only hit the hook with his tail," or "Oh, he was only smelling the bait and he hit it with his nose." Or, "They don't like the bait I'm using, so I think I'll change the bait." Because he wasn't catching anything, he'd start distracting his friends by doing things like rocking the boat. Even though he didn't have much luck in fishing, he loved their friendship, and he never stopped trying. David also said that he bought the most expensive fishing equipment and supplies, but that didn't help him either. Dan died at a very young age, just over 30, and greatly saddened family and friends. Does anybody want to add a memory of Dan?
What was the
Dan?
date on that one?
He died in 1984. We don't know the date though. Okay, the next one is Martin Leroy Marty Trujillo. He either died in November of 86 or 87, again, not quite sure. So Marty was born to Joe and Clara Trujillo and had two other siblings. Only his younger sister Belinda survives today. Marty's family lived in Casa Solana originally. Then his dad bought a large piece of land and built a house on Old Agua Fria Road. Eventually, Marty and each of his siblings built a house on that property. Belinda said Marty had a daughter named Alicia with Maria Atencio, who also passed away, from the Atencio family that owns El Paragua and Española. Elisa was only 18 months old when Marty passed away. Marty has 3 grandchildren, Elisa's children. Belinda said she and Marty used to hang out all the time and always had lots of fun. He loved to go out dancing. She said Marty always helped his friends out whenever they needed anything. He really enjoyed filming with the multiple video recorders he had. He had an interest in starting a small film production company, but that never came to fruition. Another hobby he had was collecting 60s muscle cars and antique cars. He owned 15 collectible cars. She said Marty was very accident prone and totaled 17 cars. She joked that he lived not just 9 but 13 lives. Marty was taken from this earth at a very
To
young age.
speak about is Paul Anthony Gonzalez, and he died October 27th, 1988. Paul was from old Santa Fe families of Gonzalez, Vigil, and Delgado. He grew up on Delgado Street in the Gonzalez family compound. His grandmother, Elizabeth Gonzalez, was New Mexico's Secretary of State between 1935 and 38. His parents, Charlie and Stella Gonzalez, were both good, kind, hardworking people. He had one younger sister, Sylvia, who has also passed away, as did both his parents. So Paul went to grade school at St. Francis, which was just 1 block from where he lived. He went to St. Mike's beginning his freshman year, and he was an honor roll student and participated in student council and the class play. His younger cousins that I visited said that he was very smart and used to invite them over to watch his experiments that he would do with his chemistry set. He once mixed some chemicals together and caused an explosion. They called him the mad scientist. Eventually, his parents bought a beautiful large property in Chupadero and built a new home there. Since his dad liked to build, he eventually built 3 beautiful Spanish-style homes there. They had a stream running through their property and a big pond. They bought horses and donkeys, and Paul really enjoyed riding around the mountain country there. I once trailered my horse up to Chupadero to ride up with a group of Rio and Medio into the Pecos wilderness, and there was about 10 of us that went. Paul's dad, before we left, was busy loading food and supplies on one of their donkeys, and the donkey kicked him and broke his arm, so he wasn't able to ride with us, but the rest of us went up and had fun and had a 4-day ride into the Pecos wilderness. Another thing Paul enjoyed doing was hiking from his house up to this plateau, which is between Chupadero and Rio and Medio, where there was an ancient Native American settlement, and he would explore the ruins, and he would also examine a multitude of artifacts of the ancient historical site. Paul lived somewhat of a solitary life, but he found enjoyment in his adventures. Next one, Reuben Michael Vigil. He passed away, spaceman, yes, passed away on December 19, 1991. Passed away 30 years ago, and he lived 20 years after graduation. Never got married. At St. Mike's, Mike was on the honor roll, and he played baseball, and he was in the U.S. I spoke with Mike's mom, Furby, who was 96, and his younger sister, Becky, They're both doing great, and they have fond memories of Mike. Growing up, he lived in Dale Bellama, and he liked to ride his bike a lot. He enjoyed playing tennis and played a lot of baseball. His dad even coached teams for Little League and Babe Ruth when Mike was playing, and he played second base. Becky said Mike would take her cruising, and he loved to go up to the mountains. He'd drive to the ski basin, but he liked to take the back way through Pacheco Canyon and past Aspen Meadows to get there. I'm sure a few of you might remember Aspen Meadows, a few probably don't. After his dad Aurelio retired, the family decided to move from Santa Fe to Pecos. They bought and operated the Casanova Bar. As you come into Pecos, it was on the right when you're coming into town and you arrive at the stop sign. Mike helped his dad run the bar. He became quite a pool shark. Many people went into the Casanova and wanted to play pool. Sometimes they asked Mike to join them in playing. Once they put their money down on the table and played with Mike, they usually walked out of the bar with a lot less money in their pocket. Since they owned the property behind the bar, his parents lived there. Mike helped his dad build a recreational cabin for the family up in the higher up in the Pecos Canyon, and this inspired him to build his own house behind the Casanova Bar. Becky had also told me that Mike was always tinkering with things. Once he was looking at her car engine, and he said, "You don't need this part," so he took it out of the engine. She said her car still worked after that, but she never really knew what part he took out. Mike adored his 3 nephews and nieces and would always want to spend time with them. He also enjoyed visits from friends. When you went to visit him, he'd always put aside whatever he was doing and spend time socializing with you. I used to go visit Mike periodically in Pecos, and after he passed away, I'd go visit his parents. I remember how much Mike liked to fish. He would go fishing on the Pecos River and some of the small streams up in the Pecos Canyon regularly. Mike and his family really enjoyed living in Pecos for the beauty and the recreational opportunities that the area had to offer. His mom, Furby, still lives in the Pecos Canyon with Becky.
No, possibly February 1993. Unfortunately, we weren't able to contact any of Tim's family, so we don't have any information or stories of his earlier life or the date of his death. Tim was one of the most charismatic members of our graduating class. At St. Mike's, he played basketball, was in track, and in the class play. Now, on behalf of the girls in our class, this isn't on here. I'm just, we were kind of sick of the guys already. We looked at them already. Tim walked in the door and we were like, holy, who is that? He was gorgeous. Gotta say. Since Tim's family lived in Espanola, he would often have to hitchhike to get into Santa Fe and to St. Mike's. In the 1970-71 season, he was top rebounder. Hey guys, we're talking about you. Well, his younger brother Tom was top fouler. Does anyone remember who top scorer was? Anybody? No? Mike Kick? Yep. Yeah, exactly. Tim also played in the North-South All-Star game. Gerard remembers Tim telling him about going one summer to work in a steel mill in the area where some of his family lived. Might have been around Pittsburgh. He said he had never worked so hard, and the summer heat in the mill was unbearable. And since he was a young new worker, the older men would goose him, give him a hard time, and joke with him. He quickly decided never to go back there again and work in the summer. Excuse me. After St. Mike's, Tim enrolled at New Mexico State, as did a number of our other classmates. After spending some time at NMSU, he had his accident in Ruidoso and subsequently was confined to a wheelchair the rest of his life as a quadriplegic. In his newly restricted life, he seemed to make the best of it. He had a specially equipped van and a caretaker to transport him to places he wanted to go. He still hung out with friends and went to social occasions such as Charlie Bernal's wedding. Once he was able, he enrolled at Arizona State University. Chris Stack lived near him in Tempe and told Mark several stories about Tim. By this time, he had an electric wheelchair, so he still tried to maintain a certain level of independence. He never lost his adventurous spirit. Let me just Sometimes his wheelchair would stall, so he had to find someone around to kick the motor in the back. He said, it's embarrassing to ask someone to kick you in the rear. Once Tim had an assignment due on a weekend, so on a Saturday, he cruised over to the building on his electric wheelchair where he had to drop off the assignment. When he got to the elevator, the door opened and someone was just coming out, so he backed into the elevator. Once the door closed, he looked up and couldn't reach any of the control buttons. He began to think that he may be there till Monday morning if no one else came into the elevator. He then started yelling, help! Someone outside heard him and went over and yelled in, what's the problem? Tim said, I can't get the elevator open. The man yelled, push the open button. Tim yelled back, I can't reach, I'm paralyzed. The man then opened the door for him. Tim eventually got the assignment to the right office with the help of campus police and was headed out. He was so flustered by this time as he left the building, he drove off the sidewalk and into a sandy area and he got stuck. Again, the campus police found him and helped him get out of the sand. All he could do was tell his story later and have a laugh about it. Another time, Tim went out with David Sanchez and some other friends and they all got drunk. Nobody from our class ever got drunk. They decided to drive by Chris's apartment and visit with her and her roommates. When they arrived, as Chris was coming down the stairs, she looked out the window and saw that Tim was lying on the grass. She quickly went outside and everyone was really laughing. She got mad at the group and told them to help Tim back into his wheelchair. Tim was DWI in his wheelchair. He rolled off the sidewalk and fell on the lawn. We were unable to find any additional information about Tim. Thanks to those who contributed these stories, at least most of you knew Tim pretty well during our high school years. Anybody want to add anything about Tim? Diggy?
Go ahead. Rick, go ahead.
I mean, none of the girls want to say anything? Come on.
What a guy, and what an impact he had on my life. While you were checking out Tim, the girls, Tim, when he got to St. Mike's in the middle of the semester, all seated, he spotted me. He tells me this a year later. He said, you look pretty damn tough, Dignale, with those big sideburns, the leather jacket, look at me, you're looking at me like a mean guy. I thought, geez, I might have to watch this dude. But when the class ended and everybody got up, he looked over and he said to himself, that guy's nothing but a little beefy. I don't have to worry about that guy. When Tim, as Josina said, he had, I don't know why he didn't have a car. I don't know if his mom wanted him and Tom to have a vehicle. But he would have to thumb it. He would have to hitchhike from Espanola to St. Mike's every day. But many nights, he would just stay at my house, in my room, just laying on the floor. Many nights just there because it was too much of a hassle to get out on the highway and hitchhike back. So we became very, very close friends. And in college, when he came back to New Mexico State, before that terrible accident, of course, he was really popular with the ladies, and he had this beat-up car. I had my beat-up car. Billy remembers those vehicles. Tim said to me one Saturday, okay, I got a date with this gorgeous lady. I can't let anything go wrong. My car is going to probably conk out. I want to trade your car, Dignale, for mine. You drive mine tonight. I'm driving yours. I cannot have a problem with my car. I said, all right. So I got his car. And that evening, I'm driving across the campus, and I look over. My car is conked out on the side of the road. He and his date had been walking up to the frat house or somewhere. Anyway, just an unbelievable guy, and what a tragic, tragic accident. And then 20 years of just being unbelievable in that wheelchair. Charlie was another great friend and knows many more of the details. But I think about Tim all the time. Thank you.
Ray?
I'd like to say, okay, can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Every once in a while, I used to go to the brothers' rectory and let the brother out because he used to give me the keys to the gym. So I said, okay, we'll go the weekend. And I saw I saw Tim and his mother walking up to the rectory, and they came in, and I looked up and says, who's this guy? What is he doing? He's a new student. So I started talking to him. I got to know him and his mother very well. And from then on, we became very good friends. We did a lot of stuff together, some good, not so good. But I'll give you a story when I was in college. I used to work at a place called Burger Shop. I used to work till 12 o'clock at night, come home beat. And I made the mistake of leaving my door open, well, unlocked. And Tim came with a friend of his up to my room, up to my house, and I was sleeping away, and he poured cold water all over me. I said, "What the hell are you doing?" He would do stuff like that. We would do stuff like that to each other. So we had a good life together. He unfortunately just was too short, and he had a bad accident. But he was a beautiful person. He really was.
By the way, Davey, he could have slept on my floor. I wish I had known.
Just a couple of stories, and one of them ties directly into Tim having to hitchhike, back and forth between Espanola. More than a couple of times during the basketball season, he would have to hitchhike into Santa Fe for the game, right? And most, of them, people would pick him up, of course, but probably 5 or 6 times, people would pick him up in a motorcycle in the wintertime. So he'd get, to the game, to the locker room about 45 minutes before game time, freezing. So he would demand to the coach, and this was Bobby Rodriguez, who didn't like to be demanded to, right? I got to get in the hot tub, right, to thaw out. And that leads to the related story, which was, I played a lot of basketball at St. Mike's. He was the most competitive player on my team, by far. He was a complete stud. And I always admired that about him. He was just fearless in the locker room, and as all you might imagine, Bobby Rodriguez was not shy in the locker room, but Tim would let it be known in the locker room what needed to happen even more than Bobby Rodriguez. A lot of people don't know that. He was powerful, and he was fearless.
That's great. Next one I'm going to talk about is Dennis Layden. He passed away on December 23rd, 1994. Dennis, or Horse, as some of us knew him, grew up in Tesuque near the Bishop's Lodge, and he had 5 brothers and 1 sister. He went to grade school with me at Cristo Rey. With all those brothers, there was a lot of roughhousing going on at home all the time. His brother Tim told me that their mom would have to pull out a broom and whack them to break up whenever they started wrestling around and fighting. Their house was a territorial style house with brick coping across the top of the parapets. And when the builders finished, they just left stacks of bricks on the hillside, which got buried over time in dirt. So every now and then, Dennis and his brothers used to go digging up these bricks and flipping them out of the ground. And, once Tim flipped the brick out of the ground, and it hit Dennis square in the head. And he said the corner of the brick got lodged in his head. His parents had to rush him to St. Vincent's emergency room downtown, and they had to clean the wound and stitch him up. Well, 6 months later, the Laydens had company at their home, and Dennis and his brothers were outside spinning around, as young kids sometimes do. And Dennis got dizzy and fell and split his head open again, so they had to take him back to the emergency room. Another time, Tim and Dennis were at their grandparents' house, right off the corner of Cerrillos and St. Francis, where O'Horry's is today. And Tim was mowing the lawn for his grandparents with the old-fashioned push lawnmower. Well, Dennis got too close and he didn't realize the blades were spinning. He put his hand on it and half of his finger got cut off. Another regular adventure for the Laydens in the summer was sneaking over to the swimming pool at Bishop's Lodge. one night it was pitch black out and they went over for a swim and they were making so much noise that the security flashed the lights from their office above, intending to scare off the boys. Instead, they hid until the lights went off and jumped into the pool again. This time the security came down to the pool with their guns and they escorted them out of the pool and off the property. Dennis always liked to play sports and was a fast runner. He played football, basketball, track, and he wrestled. He loved water sports and was a great water skier. And actually, Gerard Gonzalez told me this story that everybody was. Anyway, Gerard was telling me that everyone warned him that Gerard was a pretty fast, that Dennis Layden was a pretty fast runner. And so Gerard said they had a race and Gerard beat him, so I guess he wasn't as fast as Gerard. He was on student council, US, and he was part of the Kiwanis Youth Day. He went to college for a while at New Mexico State and inherited a travel trailer that his older brothers used while they attended college in Las Cruces. And it became the party trailer. I'm sure Charlie Banal, Gerard Gonzalez, and others partied there once or twice. Dennis eventually took up sheet metal work. His dad also worked with sheet metal. I remember his dad and brothers installed the ductwork for the forced air heating system at my parents' house in the early 60s. Dennis was married to Barbara. Sadly, Dennis died on his birthday, December 23rd, 1994, at age 41, and his wife died sometime after him. And surviving them is one son, Dennis Jr. That's baby horse. Noah was very smart and studious, and as you all may remember, Noah's younger brother, Pat, provided some information about Noah's life. Noah was the first of 8 children born on Thanksgiving Day, 1953. And he was born to Margaret and Joseph Rodriguez. The family home was on Pacheco Street, and he attended St. Francis School through the 8th grade. Then he enrolled at St. Mike's. At St. Mike's, Noah was a good student, and he was on honor roll, student council, speech team, Model UN, class play, and he had perfect attendance. After high school, he went to the College of Santa Fe, and he received his undergraduate degree in history. And then later, he attended St. John's College, and he earned a graduate degree. After college, he became a lifelong teacher, very much enjoying education. He won a very prestigious National Educators Award, the Milken Educator Award. And that's an educator recognition program that provides unrestricted grants of $25,000 in cash to teachers deemed successful and it's always in a surprise ceremony for the recipients. It was created in 1985 by education reformer and philanthropist Lowell Milken, and first presented in 1987. The initiative, as of today, has presented awards to over 2,600 teachers across the United States, averaging around 30 to 40 teachers per year. Teacher Magazine nicknamed this program the Oscars of teaching. Noah spent his career at the Vargas Junior High teaching English, Spanish, and history. Spanish was his favorite subject to teach. The last position he held was assistant principal at Capitol High School. I asked a former teacher and principal that worked in the Santa Fe school system about Noah. She said she just loved him, and he was loved by all his students for his kindness and his excellent teaching skills. He had a dry sense of humor. One-liners and puns were common with him. He enjoyed bowling. He participated in a bowling league and hiking in the mountains. Growing up in the neighborhood, there were a lot of kids there, and they'd often play a game of basketball or baseball, but Noah's favorite game was kick the can, and he always wanted to be the person to guard the can. Noah was taken from us at a very young age of 43, but during his short life, he accomplished much in the educational field.
Teaching is one of the most important professions in our world today. Teachers are shaping the lives and minds of tomorrow's leaders and the next generation of society. Teachers help students to develop critical thinking skills, master complex problem solving, collaborate effectively, and build healthy relationships. Noah did an excellent job of teaching those important skills to his students, which are our future leaders. And now Josina is going to get up and talk about Robert Anthony Bobby Gonzalez. And I just wanted to mention that his son and grandkids are here, Mick and grandkids, and his younger brother. And his younger brother Bernard is standing right there. And I really appreciate all of you telling me about your brother.
I want to add something about Noah. I've shared this with some of you already, but when my daughter was at DeVargas, I went to the orientation night, walk into her history class, and her teacher is Noah. He looked at me, I looked at him, and he goes, oh, no. We're not that old. I can't be teaching the kids of my classmates. And I said, sorry, buddy. And during his little 15-minute whatever it was deal, he was so distracted by it. And finally he just stopped and he said, I'm sorry, but I went to school with that lady and now I'm teaching her kid and it's just freaking me out. We're old, and look at us now. Okay, Robert Anthony Bobby Gonzalez passed away on May 3rd of 2001. Bobby grew up on Maclovia Street in a close-knit family with 8 kids. His dad was a builder working for Alan Stam, who built many of the older well-known subdivisions in town, including Casa Mañana, Casa Linda, Casa Solana, and Casa Alegre. Bobby was well-liked in school, being elected junior year class president. He participated in student council, U.S. football and basketball. His younger brother Bernard said he was funny, very smart, and had a kind heart, loved his family, and boy did he love to fish. A lot of our classmates like to fish. One time, on the way back from fishing in Chama, Bobby and his brother Jerry found a car that had rolled into the Chama River. They both rescued the 2 occupants in the vehicle. After high school, he worked as a manager of the St. Michael's Village Movie Theater. Bobby also worked for the Los Alamos National Laboratory as a technician. He then obtained a new job with U.S. West, which promoted him as a Spanish translator. This promotion moved him to Albuquerque, where he would meet a woman and later become a father to his handsome son, Nick. He later retired from U.S. West. Although Bobby enjoyed his work, his greatest joy in life was playing baseball and going fishing with his son. 20 years ago, on May 3rd, 2001, Bobby left behind his son, Nick, his mother, 3 brothers, 4 sisters, his adored nieces and nephews, and countless other family members and friends. Nick grew up to become a loving husband and father of 3, 2 girls and 1 boy whose middle name is, you guessed it, Robert. He will be forever missed. From Mark's conversations with Bernard, it was apparent how close the family is and how much he loves and misses his older brother, Bobby. Next up, Richard Finch passed away on January 26, 2008. Richard was born December 26, 1953, and grew up in Santa Fe. He attended school at Acequia Madre Elementary, Harrington Junior High, and Santa Fe High, but transferred to St. Mike's and graduated in '71. He was the grandson of Hal and Gwen Windas, who owned the Shop of the Rainbow Man downtown, east of the Palace of the Governors, which some of you may remember. Richard was married to Christina Hughes. He worked in the hospitality industry with the Hilton Corporation during his career in various parts of the country. His last location was the Hilton Portland and Executive Tower in Oregon. He had a passion for music and enjoyed playing the trumpet and composing on his concert grand keyboard. He and Christina enjoyed camping throughout the northwest part of the country, and his final wish was to have his ashes scattered at their favorite site in the Cascade Mountains range on the Olympic Peninsula. the date?
Next person I'd like to pay tribute to is Ted Martin Springer. He passed away on April 17th, 2011. I visited with Tom Springer, Ted's younger brother, and only surviving sibling, 8 years younger than Ted. Some of you might remember his sister Peggy, and she has also passed away. The family lived in Albuquerque, and Ted's dad worked in the tire business. Ted went to school at St. Therese, which was taught by the nuns from 1st to 8th grade. Then he went to Garfield Middle School. His sophomore year, Ted's family moved to Santa Fe when his dad became manager of the B.F. Goodrich tire store here. Eventually, he bought the store and became the owner of Springer Tires, and that store was on the corner of Don Gaspar and Alameda. You guys might remember that. Ted had a lot of interests. He was in the chess club, ski club, he played football, track, tennis, and golf. The first car that he owned was a 57 Chevy Bel Air. Tom told me a funny story that involved one of our classmates here today. One day, Ted and Louis Montoya went for a cruise around town, and they brought 8-year-old Tom with them. Tom said they were playing the Steppenwolf 8-track tape, Easy Rider. One of the songs on that 8-track tape was called The Pusher. So when that song started, Louis turned around and told Tom, "Don't listen to this song. Put your hands over your ears. It's bad for you." Tom said that they were always doing that to him. They were always telling him not to do the things that they were doing. It's like that old saying, do as I say, not as I do. After St. Mike's, he went to New Mexico State for a few years and partied. Later, he eventually came home and he worked with his dad at the tire store. After Ted's dad passed away in 1978, his mom decided to sell the tire store. Today, the former location of that store is still called Springer Plaza. Ted married Melody Ward, and he had one son named Matthew. Today, Matthew has 4 kids. From the tire store, he went to work at White's Auto at the St. Michael's Village Strip Center. He had split with his wife Melody already, and he met Helen B. Hill there. Helen was then the love of his life and was with him and took care of him until the end of his life. They had one child together named Mark. Ted then went to work at the highway department in the right-of-way section, and Lester Cisneros, our former basketball star from 1967, was the supervisor. At that time, he was quite a hustler. He took a job with the Albuquerque Journal, delivering 400 newspapers a day. At 2 a.m., he'd get up and go pick up the newspapers and deliver them. Then he'd go to work at his regular job at 8 o'clock in the morning. Then when he left the highway department, he was looking in the classifieds for another job, and he found a delivery job at the Chocolate Maven. It was 2 hours a day, every morning, and it was to deliver pastries all over town. And they offered him $7 an hour. He told him, "That's why you can't keep people in this job. Just give me $350 cash a week and I'll do the job. For that, you're buying my dependability." He then went and made the same deal with another bakery. Then he made the same deal with the camera shop downtown to deliver film to Albuquerque every day for developing. Then he made the same deal with Lafarge Concrete, making deliveries to Albuquerque to deliver payroll-related items. So he made $1,400 a week cash. He was a hard-working guy. Ted really enjoyed sports. And he was in the Gold, later called the D1 Baseball League, and got numerous All-Tournament and MVP awards. He was a good pitcher. He was also a great bowler. He loved to fish, and he was pretty good at golf. Ted used to like to go play basketball with many other classmates, including Al Regensburg, Vince Medina, Louis Montoya, Phil Cerna, Frank Romero, Frank Lopez, Gerard Gonzalez, and others. They go to Adelaide Elementary and they each give the custodian $3 so they can use the gym. After watching that 20-year reunion game, Ted was the coach. I guess he wasn't a very good coach because he lost to Santa Fe High by 10 points or so. Ted had really bad teeth. And one day he was at the dentist, and the dentist told him that he had to extract 22 teeth. The dentist recommended pulling 3 or 4 at a time. Ted said, take them all out, all 22 at once. I don't want to waste my time and money coming here a few times, just take them all out. He then had dentures put in. Once Ted was taking a nap on the couch at his house, and he had pulled out his dentures and put them on the table. And his son Matthew put the dentures in the freezer for about an hour and then took them out after an hour or so and returned them to the table right before Ted woke up. And then Ted started putting the dentures, and the coldness just shocked him. And they really laughed after Ted finished getting mad at him. Our friend Ted died at the young age of 57.
Wow.
Anybody got anything to say about Ted? Okay, we're gonna go on to Maria, Teresa, Terry.
Mark, just a quick thing on Ted. I love that guy. He has this wry smile, and he loves sports. And he, in pickup basketball, there's really 2 kinds of players: guys who get the ball and actually look to pass, and guys who get the ball and just go shoot. Ted was in the shooting department. I'd love to get the corner with that left-handed long 25-footer. Sometimes he made it, sometimes he didn't, but he never had any hesitation about popping the long shot, and it was kind of his personality.
Thank you, Davey. Okay, now on to Maria Teresa Terry Obinag in May on the 13th in 2014. Terry came from a good family. Her father and mother were originally from the Silver City area. Her father, Vicente, served in the Army in World War II, and he was in the Pacific Theater. He was captured by the Japanese after 4 months of combat, and he was one of those Bataan Death March survivors. He survived 3.5 years in the Japanese prison camps, receiving the Bronze Star and numerous other commendations. He came home, married Celia Preciado, and they had 5 children. Her parents were warm, friendly, and kind people. Terry attended Guadalupe Catholic School her freshman year at mid-high, then she enrolled at St. Mike's beginning her sophomore year. She was quite active at St. Mike's, being on student council, speech team, Model UN, yearbook staff, US, Drillettes, Leo Club, yearbook convention, choir, cosplay, and received state business awards. After high school, Terry married Mike Gonzalez on Valentine's Day, which was also her mom's birthday, and they subsequently had 3 children. Terry's oldest brother, Richard, shared some thoughts about her. Only Terry's oldest friends, he said, like Perla Aranda, will remember how she took a 2x4 and she drew lines on her bedroom walls. Then took round plates and lids and drew different sized circles on the ceiling. She then painted yellow and purple stripes on the walls and purple dots on the yellow ceiling. Our poor grandma couldn't even go into Terry's room without getting dizzy. Terry was very involved in her kids' Little League baseball games, even becoming the league's treasurer. And she kept on helping even after her kids had outgrown playing. She continued being the treasurer, ran the concession stand, bringing chili con queso at her own expense to sell nachos for fundraising. She even recruited umpires, including our youngest brother, Sam. Of course, he couldn't refuse. Terry's kids have all been very successful. Her oldest son, Eric Gonzalez, is a Santa Fe Fireman Battalion Chief. Her middle child, Jonathan, is a paramedic, and her youngest, Kimberly, works in the cancer center as a phlebotomist. Terry was a co-conspirator on a prank that we played on her husband, Mike. After one of the Bataan Death March survivor walks that we attended regularly, honoring our father, we met her in a hotel room. Mike was busy with our parents, so Terry's 2 brothers and sister-in-law decided to get even with Mike for something that he had done earlier to them. We short-sheeted the bed and told Terry to make sure Mike went to bed first. We weren't 10 minutes away from their hotel when we got a call from Terry, who was laughing so hard she could hardly speak. Mike tried to go to bed, and when he did, his legs got only halfway down, and then he hit the short sheet. He kicked and kicked so hard to try to get all the way to the bottom of the bed that he fell out of the bed. And he was so mad, saying he was going to call the hotel management to complain about how the maids couldn't even make the bed. Terry stopped laughing long enough to tell Mike it was a prank from his brothers-in-law. And those are some nice remembrances from Terry's brother. Her kids agreed that she was a great mother, always involved in their lives and supporting and encouraging them. And Perla told me that Terry and her friends had hung out together since grade school. Perla is from a large family of 7 siblings, and Terry always enjoyed doing many things with the Aranda family. Perla joked that Terry liked her family so much that she married Mike Gonzalez, and that's Perla's first cousin. And Mike was so heartbroken after Terry's death that he died 2 short years after Terry in 2016. Both Terry and Mike left us at a very young age. David William Stack. He passed away in November on the 15th in the year 2015. David and his sister Chris went to grade school at St. Francis and then on to St. Mike's, and both graduated with us. At St. Mike's, David enjoyed being a member of the chess and photography club, US, played golf, and he was in the class play. He also got perfect attendance and a typing award. After high school, David went to Denver to study diesel mechanics, and after, he worked in that profession. He also worked as an auto mechanic, then became a machinist. He always resided in Denver. Chris shared some thoughts about her brother with me. He was a kind, gentle soul that left us too soon. He didn't have a mean bone in his body, yet would fight for the honor of those he loved if necessary. He was a friend to the friendless and to the underdogs. He hardly ever complained, and he loved his single life. He also loved his RC Cola and rum. Chris and her husband Robert, who live in Nambe, invited him into their home, and once he was pretty sick, he was able to come home to New Mexico and spend his last days around his loved ones. And I remember in our senior year, some of us were always drag racing in our cars whenever we got the chance. I had a fast car with a big V8 engine and a 4-speed with a Hurst shifter and hooker headers and ram air induction. Once at a stoplight, David was in the lane next to me in his 1960s VW Bug. When the light turned green, we both took off racing. I was not happy because David was able to take off and keep up with me for a while. Finally, I overtook him. Chris told me that David really knew how to make that VW scream. And it's funny how some past events will stick in your mind.
Michael David Apodaca, Apples, passed away on 12/22/15. Mike's older brother Fred said Mike always enjoyed sports and volunteered coaching football and baseball at St. Mike's. He also did some Babe Ruth coaching. He worked at the Department of Transportation and took great pride in his work with soils and pavement testing. He was well liked at St. Mike's and was a member of student council, choir, and the class play. He also played football and baseball. As you all remember, Mike was a great rabble-rouser during basketball season, along with Charlie Banal, Mula, and Diggy, always Diggy. Together with our cheerleaders, they really got the team and the spectators going. Looking at a photo of them in the annual, Charlie looked like he didn't belong with that group. Charlie is the only one that didn't have a thick mustache. Perla mentioned a funny story which involved her, Apples, Mula, Diggy, and sometimes others. The group liked to sing, so they would go to the Salvador Pettis Park, bring a guitar, which Mula played, and they would have jam sessions and make up lyrics to the guitar music and laugh a lot. She couldn't remember offhand some of their creative lyrics, but one went something like this. Do you know what we said? No? They ran out of peaches in Chupadero, so we had to pick chili and Chimayo. To show their creativity and sing a little for us. I'm sure Apples would be watching from above, tapping his foot and singing along. May we cherish the memory of Mike Apples Apodaca for what he added to our lives. Anybody want to ask anything about Apples? Vicki?
A great friend. He tried to portray a really tough exterior, but he was just a big softy inside. And when the Moolah Trio were scouring the world looking for a cowbell player, he was the obvious choice. He did his job. And I really miss that guy. We had great fun. He drove a Corvair, the most dangerous car ever produced. And he picked me up on Friday night, and the thing was putting out so much exhaust, we'd have a headache by the time we got out. Great
Thank you,
man.
Vicki. Anybody else? No?
Because he had that beer so thick that he
Yeah.
was the only one that could pull the liquor out of apples.
He used to go buy all the liquor for most of us. Because he was old enough, they just, oh yeah, it's fine.
You know who his partner was? Right there.
55 cents for a quart.
Thanks for the comments about apples. Next, I'd like to talk about Loretta Marie Ortiz-Pino. She passed away February 28, 2017. Loretta knew two things at the age of 5. She wanted to be a doctor, and she wanted to play classical guitar. She lived an extraordinary life, most of it in service to others. I went to her memorial service at the Sagebrush Inn in Taos, and just couldn't believe all of her accomplishments in her short life stolen by ovarian cancer. Loretta's father, Pedro, is from a family that has been in New Mexico about 13 generations. Her mom was Evangeline Blanchard, and there were 9 children in her family. Her oldest brother is Jerry Ortiz-Pino, who is currently a state senator representing the downtown area of Albuquerque. Loretta attended Loretto, then St. Mike's. As we all remember, she was very active in school organizations and earned many honors while attending St. Mike's. She was on the student council, Model UN, choir, chess club, U.S. National Honor Society, Ski Club, Leo Club, class play, honor roll, GAA, Block M, Who's Who, Outstanding Teenager, and Girl Steak. Charlie Banal reminded me that she was the first female student council president. I asked him how he remembered that. He said, because I ran against her and she beat me. I was told a story that I didn't remember, and Joe Becker said he'd jump up and mention a story about Sister Frances and a chemistry lab. Is Joe here?
So, since Mark has no recollection of this, I'm shading this in my favor. But Mark and I were lab partners, and for some reason they were foolish enough to trust us with probably nitric acid, but anyway, a pretty strong acid solution. And he was passing off the beaker to me, and I reached to grab it, and he dropped it, and I tried to grab it and missed, and it shattered on the floor, and acid went all over, splattered onto Loretta's knee socks. She was wearing, luckily, these red knee socks, and Sister Frances ran over and was immediately dousing her with water to keep it from burning her legs. You know, I don't think we really understood how dangerous this could have been. But anyway, it kind of happened without incident. But then, I believe it was at the 30th class reunion, Loretta was there, and I went up to her and I said, you know, I feel like I still owe you a pair of knee socks. And she just laughed and she said, you know, is there a reason you're trying to make amends for your past life? And that's the story. She always had a great sense of humor, and I don't believe she ever held that against us.
Well, thanks for telling that story, Joe. I didn't remember one bit about that. Maybe you just choose to forget some things. Loretta got her undergraduate degree from UNM and her MD from Stanford in 1981. She completed her pediatric residency at UC Denver, where she also served as chief resident. She then served 4 years as a pediatrician with the Indian Health Service on the Navajo Reservation. She then moved to Nicaragua as a visiting teacher and liaison between UNM Medical School and the medical schools in Managua and Leon. In 1991, she moved to Taos and established a pediatric practice. In 2006, she co-founded Sustainable Health Innovations, LLC, for the purpose of educating healthcare practitioners in integrative medicine. From 2007 to 2011, she was a consultant pediatrician at the Taos Picaris Indian Health Center. From 2011 to 2015, she served as Holy Cross Hospital's medical officer, chief medical officer, and director of the integrative care team. She was also a certified medical hypnotherapist. She also apprenticed with the curandera for over 10 years. On top of all this, she is credited with the book titled The Visits, which her former wife told me about, and so I ordered it on Amazon. It's a very interesting book. The book tells of over 200 visits that Loretta had, spanning almost 20 years, visits from the other side. She received messages from many deceased people. Some she knew, and others she had never met. They included messages from her mom, her former partner Callie, and others. From all the notes Loretta took during these visits, the messages conveyed similar thoughts, and this is what they were. Life is an ephemeral gift, constrained by illusion, and our truest task here on earth is to love unconditionally. The afterlife is beautiful, filled with peace and insight, and death is nothing to fear. Loretta joined a stream of beings, known and unknown, who throughout time have been selected to serve as a conduit for sacred wisdom. She served on many charitable and public service boards and committees, too numerous to mention. This is a brief summary of her life's work. Loretta also took up classical guitar starting at age 5 and played all her life. She also played the cello and played pre-Baroque music for years with a group in Taos. I'm sure Joe Ortiz loved that pre-Baroque music. She had concerns about child abuse and was passionate about her service as a board member on the Community Against Community Against Violence. She was also passionate about her work. She loved having fun. She loved hiking, biking, kayaking, and canoeing. She had a memorable hiking trip up the 19,340-foot summit on Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania in 2005. She loved playing golf and worked out with a personal trainer twice a week, even during her chemotherapy. She is remembered as a lifelong athlete and an outdoorswoman. Loretta had a deep and active spiritual life, involving Buddhist practice, meditation, and being open as a conduit to communicate universal truths. She was also loving and passionate about the people that were in her life. She was with her partner Callie for many years until Callie died of a brain tumor in 2012. She then became very close to Melissa Kennelly, and they were married. Unfortunately, Loretta was diagnosed with stage 3C ovarian cancer less than 3 months after they were married, and Melissa cared for her until her death. I want to thank Melissa. Now she's the Honorable District Judge Kennelly of the 8th Judicial District in northern New Mexico for all of her help in preparing this memorial for Loretta.
Wow.
Anyone like?
I lived in Hawaii, and my mother would bring me to Santa Fe, like early in the morning, and I think Stu was always with us a lot. And we would hitchhike to the ski basin, and we would spend, we had the best day, but she and Stuart were just graceful, beautiful skiers. I was not, but I tried to keep up with them. Do you remember Stu?
I remember Loretta as just being a wonderful, sweet friend.
Yeah. You never, did Did you ever go up there and ski with us? We just seemed like you were with us.
Indeed, we did. We all chased each other around with the VWs till I ran off the road. Again.
A lot of times we didn't have cars, we would hitchhike just, it was like a block from our house on Hyde Park Road, and never had a problem, just had great days. She was a good friend, she was a dear person. And her family was always very welcoming because, sometimes they would stay there because they lived in Hawaii too far for, distance.
Yeah.
We didn't drive back then, so, but nice family.
Oh, nice. Anybody else?
Stuart, no? I do have something else to say. Loretta also was a classmate at St. Francis since first grade. I have two really vivid memories of her. One is that she was always the smartest kid in class, always, since first grade. The other was, every year St. Francis, we did a class Christmas play. And one year, Loretta sang "Oh Holy Night." She played the guitar and sang, and blew me away. I have never forgotten that voice. She had a beautiful voice. Probably sixth grade, I don't know, but it sticks in your mind because it was so beautiful. Okay, so on to George. George passed away on October 23rd, 2017. This tribute was written by Jean, his younger sister. Greetings, class of 71. I'd like to share a few of the lighthearted moments that I experienced growing up with my older brother, George. George, or Georgie as he was known in our family, was born on April 23rd, 1953. As destiny would have it, he was born on the feast of St. George the Dragon Slayer, and would be named by my good Catholic mom, not in honor of her husband who bore the same first name, but in honor of the saint whose feast day she would celebrate on the day of his birth. I, in turn, was named after, she says, Joan d'Arc, and at my dad's insistence, spelled Jeanne. We were exactly 2 years and 3 days apart in age. Imagine 2 children, both Taurus, stubborn as all get out, and patient until they're not. Our parents had their hands full, and probably was why they waited till we were 14 and 12, respectively, to bring us one, then another sibling, Samia and Pancho. Those 2 children were a true gift to my parents, as they were the primary caregivers as they reached their elder years. As for George and I, Dad determined George didn't have a lick of sense. And as for me, Mom determined I was too damn independent for my own good. Both statements true to a degree. There was no question their oldest child and the oldest grandson on the Adello side would emulate not just his dad, but the saint whose name he would bear. Throughout his life, Georgie would be a leader, never a follower, and had a tribe of adoring fans that includes his family, friends, and even his enemies' admiration. He would be the second 24/7 man I knew. Dad was the first. He would emulate St. George in many aspects of his life, tilting and slaying it. There was no risk too great that he couldn't conquer, or better said, why let fear get in the way of a good time? There wasn't anything he couldn't do, even if he couldn't. This was proven true from a very early age. By his estimation, he learned to swim in the Pecos River at birth. Well, let's just say he was sure he could swim, when in fact he was really good at holding his breath underwater for a very long time. He would call my description splitting hairs in his own eyes. He could do anything, so he did. This story was relayed to me by my mom's sister. One of Georgie's first brushes with survival was when Mom took me and Georgie to California to visit our grandfather. Georgie was 2.5 and I was 6 months old. Mom, with babies in tow and with the help of her younger sister, Auntie Mela, took us to the beach. Georgie, excited to show off his swimming skills, assured my auntie repeatedly that he knew how to swim. Auntie, I know how to swim. Auntie, I know how to swim. Repeat 50 times. As Mom and Auntie settled in, I became fussy, so all attention was on the 6-month-old that was crying at the top of her lungs. Unbeknown to Mom or Auntie, Georgie, who had very little patience with crybabies, decided he'd go and take a swim. He slipped away to the depths of the mighty ocean. Mom and Auntie didn't notice he was gone since they were preoccupied with a most adorable baby girl who was screaming her head off. That is, until the lifeguard brought him back, dripping wet. He was found flailing, taking big gulps of water, when the lifeguard came to his rescue. The lifeguard plopped Georgie down and politely said, "Ladies, you might want to keep an eye on this one too." Eventually, Georgie really did learn to swim and was drawn to any body of water that he was near. He loved the Pecos and the ocean, and the sound of the waves in particular. Years later, when he would come to visit me in the San Francisco Bay Area, family in tow, his first priority was to get to the ocean so he could put his feet in, this time without big gulps of salt water. His next significant brush was around the age of 14. Living in Pecos, we had the best of all worlds, close enough to town to have a sense of city-different living, and in the country where we were independent and had the great outdoors at our disposal. Dad let Georgie, at age 10, take the wheel of a car and drive. His first attempt took out our neighbor's fence. After that, he was a great driver. This would be beneficial to the store since they now had someone that could load up the trash and take it to the dump. A few years after taking trash to the dump wore off, along came a friend with a motorcycle. Not a big one, but big enough. He convinced his older buddy he could drive. After all, he could drive a truck. And off he drove into the sunset with another of his friends, Leonard C. DeVaca. They drove uptown, then around the church, and decided to go down to the river for a few passes. You guessed it, a few minutes later, we hear the ambulance go by. Unbeknownst to us, it's for Georgie and Leonard. Georgie hit the accelerator instead of the brake. The accident tore up his leg pretty bad. He spent a week at St. Vincent's. His main concern was Dad was going to be really mad about this one. In truth, Dad was too worried about the accident to be mad. This incident did teach him one thing. He wasn't suited for a two-wheeler with a motor. So now you know the reason he drove a trike instead of a motorcycle. Through this event, George had an incredible tolerance for pain. That particular injury took a very long time to heal and was complicated by his participation in football and wrestling. I'm not sure his knee ever healed. When I used the word destiny in my earlier description of George, his short life was truly one of intervening destinies. We have a picture of Georgie wearing a Notre Dame t-shirt as an infant. It read, Notre Dame 19, ? He would fulfill this destiny by not only attending as an undergrad, but also as a law student. While he was at St. Mike's, he practiced his future career aspirations by being the only student that carried around a briefcase bulging with paper. We had a lot of nerds with briefcases. His love of music was also another of his destinies. As a toddler, he had no interest in toys. Instead, he would raid the kitchen cupboard for the pots and pans that would drop on the floor, and he could bang with his hands and make lots of noise. During grade school, Mom took us both to St. Anthony's School and wanted us both to take piano lessons. The nun, Sister Mary Bernadine, gave us each a chance to play the piano. She looked at Georgie and said, "This one has promise." She looked at me and said, "This one plays well in the playground." Hence, Georgie was able to take a few lessons that gave him basics of reading music, and I got to play in the playground, a win for both of us. The lessons were short-lived, as his primary instrument of interest was the guitar, so he taught himself how to play. George was also a very smart person and gifted in speaking Spanish. This was enhanced with the help of Brother Abden, our freshman Spanish teacher, who taught us all how to sing Allá en Rancho Grande, Georgie's signature song that he sang when he was part of Junior Brown's ensemble and after, with his band that often performed on the Santa Fe Plaza. I will leave the rest of Georgie's antics and accomplishments to you, his classmates. Thank you for the opportunity to share a few stories with you. George is missed and loved, and his presence is always with me. He will always be my brother George. A big thanks to Jean for sharing some of her thoughts about growing up with her hermano mayor, older brother George. George was married to Marie Hawkes from St. Mike's class of 1970, and they had 3 kids, George III, Ben, and Amanda. Until the time of his death, the love of his life and the keeper of his heart was his granddaughter, Paloma. George was very active at St. Mike's on Student Council, National Honor Society, Model UN, choir, U.S. class play, football, track, wrestling, Block M, Who's Who, outstanding high school student, Kiwanis Youth Day, honor roll, religion and history awards. David Martinez shared a few thoughts about George. George was friendly. He always stopped to greet you, and as busy as he was with his family, his law practice, and his music, he always found time to spend with his circle of friends. He hosted people at his property on the river behind St. Anthony's Church in Pecos. He had strong academics at St. Mike's and later at Notre Dame, successfully receiving his law degree. When he wasn't practicing law, he loved playing with his band, White Buffalo, and they were awesome. It was a great band. Would anybody like to share thoughts about George?
George is my second cousin, who I didn't really get to know till we were at St. Mike's.
Oh, wow. Yeah, interesting.
You were his mom?
Rudy?
You were his mom?
George was kind of
His
getting
mom.
going. He was kind of standoffish, and in wrestling we used to have this thing where the biggest guy, he was a heavyweight guy, so I was kind of small. But they would have, since nobody could wrestle with the big guys would start wrestling a heavyweight, and he'd have to wrestle everybody down the weight. When he'd get to me, he'd be tired. And one day he told me, "Little shit, I'm gonna squash you." But I was too quick and got away. But then the other thing that happened one day I saw him on the plaza and he was playing, and he goes, "Marcelata, come here." I go, "What's wrong, George?" He says, "Do you have a son named Philip?" I go, "Yeah, why?" He says, "I have a daughter named Amanda." And, and have you had a talk with your son? And I'm going, "What?" Anyway, that was that. Last thing he said is, "Don't forget, I'm a lawyer." I said, "Oh, okay, you're not."
So did Philip and Amanda get married or anything?
Well,
No?
They dated.
I think
They
it
did.
was
That's cool.
homecoming dance or something. but-
That's awesome.
George would lie to his parents that he was staying at my house, which he did quite a bit. And I would lie to my parents that I'm staying at George's house. And we took off to Albuquerque and God knows what, we did all kinds of things. And got away with it. They never found out where, who was staying where. I found out, it's about 2 years ago, from Jeannie, that we were actually related in a roundabout way. George and I never knew that, but through one of my cousins, I was going to go to his birthday, and she goes, "Well, he's my cousin too." And I went, "Oh my God, no, this is way too much." But George and I had always a good time. I mean, probably the one I kept outside of Mark, the most conscious or contact with is George all the time. We used to try to catch each other here and there. But just before he died, he was supposed to meet with us, and he never called, never nothing. So I kind of wondered, and then a couple of, I guess it was 2-3 weeks later, he died. So it's kind of a drag.
Anyone else? No? Dodge, date of death is unknown, might have been about 2017. We made numerous contacts to obtain more information about John, but were mostly unsuccessful. He is remembered as a very quiet, reserved, affable student at St. Mike's. His family was from Jemez Pueblo. David Nava was a friend of his and went to visit him in Albuquerque when he was ill. He also had a mass said for John earlier this year in honor of the 4th anniversary of his passing, which meant he may have died in 2017, although we're not sure. John Granito said John Dodge lived close to him on Don Diego Street during their high school years, and they used to listen to music and exchange albums periodically. At St. Mike's, John participated in Student Council, Leo Club, Kiwanis Youth Day, Boys Day, Choir, the class play, and US. Anybody want to add anything about John?
The next person I want to talk about is Ann Halpin. She passed away May 14th, 2018. And really the only person I talked to that was able to tell me a little something about Ann was her buddy Chris Stack, because Chris really took her around, and they did a lot of things together in the last part of Ann's life. They remained close friends until the day that Ann passed away. Anyway, Chris wrote a short tribute about her good friend. When you think of Ann, you think of her large, beautiful hazel eyes. Then there was her smile that would light up any room. She was honest and always would tell you what was on her mind, whether you liked it or not. Over the years, she endured a lot with her battle with MS. She always loved her chocolate. We couldn't go to the store without her going to the chocolate aisle and stocking up. She is sorely missed, and anyway, that was a nice tribute that Chris gave me. Ann moved with her family from Dayton, Ohio in 1956 and attended St. Francis of Loretto Academy before enrolling and graduating from St. Mike's. I also knew her dad, Joe Halpin, pretty well. And by the way, last night Diggy mentioned that the biggest movie in 1971 was Billy Jack. Anyway, Joe Halpin had a part in that movie. It was a small part, but he was in it. Ann was an honor roll student and was a member of the Student Council, the Speech Club US, Ski Club, and the Leo Club. Ann did get married once to a man that had 6 kids. She took great pleasure in helping him raise his kids, and they really liked her. When she was diagnosed with MS, sadly, they got a divorce. I have a funny story to tell about Ann. One day, about 6 years ago, Perla invited Ann, Chris Stack, and me to a luncheon at her house. We had a nice, leisurely visit that day, and when it came time to leave, we went outside to say goodbye to Ann and Chris, since they had arrived together. I helped Ann to get into the passenger seat and the car, since she had very limited mobility at that time. My body was still leaning into the car, and I told Ann it was very much a pleasure seeing her and visiting with her again. And then I went to give her a kiss on the cheek. Well, anyway, she pulled me close and she started French kissing me. And then I smiled, and she smiled, and I said goodbye to Ann, stood upright, and I closed the car door, thinking the others hadn't seen that. About a year later, I was talking to Perla, and another time to Chris, and they both observed that passionate kiss that Ann had given me that day. And that was the last time I saw her. We all had a good laugh about it. And actually, Chris just told me about 2 weeks ago that on the way back to Ann's house, Ann asked her, is Mark taken at this time? Anyway, does anybody have anything to say about Ann?
I do, of course. So, Ann also was a St. Francis girl, and went to school with her since first grade, but we used to ride the bus together, and right next door to Ann, Felice Davis lived. Does anybody remember Felice?
Yes.
She only went to St. Mike's 1 year. I think 1 year, our sophomore year, but she went to St. Francis in Loretto with us. And it was just interesting because Ann and Felice died about a week apart.
Oh, wow.
They grew up right next door to each other. They were really good friends. I don't know if they remain friends, but they were when we were growing up. And I just found it was just so weird that they died about a week apart.
Oh,
So
wow, I didn't
strange.
know that.
Well, on to Carlos Antonio Pacheco. We all remember Carlos as being a friendly, fun-loving guy that always had a smile on his face. I'm sorry, Carlos died in April 17th of 21. not too long ago. He was very involved in activities and sports while he was at St. Mike's. He was on student council, speech team, rabble rousers, Leo Club, class play, choir, basketball, football. He was also in US as many other classmates. We've asked numerous classmates, what was US? Does anybody, nobody knows. Does anybody remember what it was? No, we don't know what it was. Oh well. I don't know. Anyway, he was the son of Reverend Deacon Carlos and Eva Pacheco. He was born on August 12, 1952. Carlos grew up in Santa Fe and attended Our Lady of Guadalupe School. According to his sisters, Carlos would give you the shirt off his back. He was a very kind soul with an infectious laugh and a killer smile. He lived his life a su manera, his way.
Yeah.
Back in the day, he worked as a dental hygienist. I don't think I let Carlos.
So see, they had gone to your house, you had a mobile unit.
He traveled around the state in a mobile dental unit, providing dental care to the underserved population. Thank God I could afford a dentist. Yes. Later he worked in construction. He was the most creative spirit in the family. He could build or fix just about anything. He enjoyed camping, playing poker, and dancing. In the later part of his life, he took up residence near the King Brothers Ranch in Stanley, New Mexico. His sisters, Michelle and Diana, along with his nieces, nephews, and numerous cousins, had the opportunity to provide love, support, and care for him up until the end of his life. He maintained his great sense of humor right up to the end.
Anybody have anything to say about Carlos?
Yeah, I don't know if you knew, but he was a first cousin with Kel and myself and another Johnny Pacheco that went to Santa Fe High. So there was 4 of us cousins that graduated in 71. It was kind of interesting. But anyway, I've known Carlos since we were little. But the last thing I remember, he lived with his dad, Uncle Charlie, and they decided they didn't want butterballs, so they bought these 2 big white turkeys. And then called me up, bro, can you come and help me? We don't know how to catch the turkeys. They're really wild in our backyard.
They bought live turkeys.
Live turkeys. It's 2 big old white toms. It's hilarious. And then, well, I caught them, and he called me the next day. He said, they put them in the garage. He said, bro, can you come back and help us? We don't know how to clean them. We don't want to kill them. Because they named them, I don't know. That was awful. But anyway, I ended up plucking their turkeys and it was and cleaning them, and they ended up cooking them. And he called me back, bro, can you come and help us eat them? There's only 2 of us, and we have 2 turkeys. But anyway, that was one of the last good memories I had of him.
Thanks, Rudy. That was a good story. Anybody else for Carlos?
This is secondhand, so I wasn't in the class, but I heard about it very shortly afterwards. And Joe Becker, who was in the class, and I were talking about this last night over dinner. So this was Brother Lewis's speech class freshman year, and Carlos was struggling a little bit in the class, right? And the class was a little bit boring. Everybody had their 2 minutes to get up and give a great speech. So Carlos was at the end of the class, and his topic was how to, in 2 minutes, break into a car, steal the stereo or the radio, and not leave fingerprints. and Brother Lewis let him finish the speech, right? Top to bottom, and said, well, Carlos, you had an F coming into this class, and now you're a solid B, right? So it's amazing that Brother Lewis let him finish the class, his little speech, but I thought, oh my God. I vaguely remembered it because I wasn't in the class,
But Joe was in the class, and he said, yes, that's exactly the way it went. So that's Carlos's speech freshman year.
Thank you, Ray. Anybody want to talk about Ted Anastasio Herrera? His date of death is unknown, although I think he passed away quite a number of years ago. We were not able to obtain much information about Ted, not knowing his family or where he lived or anything about him. Ted and his brother David went to Cristo Rey Elementary School with me before coming to St. Mike's. He was a quiet, very respectful guy and had a very kind and friendly personality. I know he truly practiced his Catholic faith during our years together at Cristo Rey. I think he worked in the construction industry after graduation, but I'm not sure about that, and I wish I would have gotten to know him better.
The last is Viola Carmen Sandoval, and we don't know her date of death. Viola had a very pleasant personality. While at St. Mike's, she was on the Gillette team and was in the choir, FBLA Spanish Club in the class play. She received a choir award. Martha Montoya Armijo shared some thoughts about Viola. Viola was a respected classmate of the 1971 St. Michael's graduating class. She was the younger of two daughters in the Sandoval family. She and her family resided on Salazar Street. Her older sister Elena graduated from Loreto. Viola attended St. Anne's, Loreto Academy, and then St. Mike's. An important part of Viola's life was dancing with the Lily Baca Dance Studio for many years. Martha, Viola, and I danced together for Lily Baca for many, many years, and I have to say, Martha and I were not as graceful as Viola was a good one. Her gracefulness and love of dance was exhibited in her dance performances. She was quiet, reserved, and a devout parishioner of St. Anne's Church. Viola was a kind and wonderful friend. She undoubtedly is missed by her family and friends. Unfortunately, Martha lost contact with Viola after high school and was deeply saddened to learn of her passing. We have more thoughts from Melinda. Melinda's here today. I met Viola Sandoval my first year attending St. Michael's High School in 1969. We became quick friends. She was always friendly and caring, and as I recall, had a quirky laugh, and we were always laughing about something. Viola had a beautiful soprano voice and was part of the choir. Not positive, but she may have had a solo part in the choir. As part of the Gillette's team, she loved to dance. Her and I were always practicing our dance routines in the girls' bathroom or wherever there was space. She was not only sweet, but was very welcoming, had a smile for everyone, and was easygoing. I wish we had kept in touch even after high school. The last time we saw each other was in 1981 at our 10-year high school reunion. Thanks, Viola, for wonderful memories of days gone by. We miss you. And then Carmen Gonzalez Runge also shared a short memory. Viola and I were friends from Loreto Academy to high school at St. Mike's. She was always so sweet and kind to everyone. I cherish the time we had together. Last night at the dinner, Nori had all kinds of neat memorabilia, and she had a book, and it was a book of poetry. I think we wrote those poems when we were at Loreto, and so I'm looking through it, I'm just looking at the names, not reading any of the poems, and then I found one by Viola. And, oh my God, it was like, she's talking to us, you know, so I'm gonna read that, and I think it's a perfect way to finish this. So this is Viola's poem. At close of day, clear quiet night falls. On the horizon we see some.
All right, we have these beautiful candles here. Family members of our classmates have passed. If you want to take these candles with you, that's fine. Any of our classmates that feel a closeness to any of the individuals, please take their candle. I am going to take Terry Ojinaga's and give it to their kids. I told them I'd take it to them. But if anybody else wants to take one, go ahead and feel free to do so. Billy.
Number 33 in your program.
David said, okay. Billy.
If you'd all bow your heads, please, I'm going to give the closing prayer. May you be held by the God of compassion as you remember all our friends. May God be with you in your sorrow and comfort you in your loss. May your God, your family, and your friends give you strength and confidence. May your spirit be lifted, may your heart be filled with peace, and may the light of God's promise fill you with the joy and hope. Amen.
Amen.